Tokyo is one of the most populous cities in the world. I think it's the most populous at 37 million people. It's one of the loneliest ever. Earlier this year, I spent 7 months living between Tokyo and Manila. What was I doing there? Traveling, making friends, experiencing different cultures, living in a share house with 12 roommates, going out every single day to see a museum, read a book, and spend a lot of time in Winno Park. Some soul searching, basically, and as beautiful and as serene as it sounds, and I think it was one of the most depressing times I was there. And I think it's because Tokyo is such a busy place to the point that people and the city can also be so indifferent. Whenever people ask me about my experience living there for a few months, I would always refer to this word called Sonder. Jean-Paul Sartre would always refer to as the realization that people you meet in your life have lives as intricate and as amazing as yours. So it makes you think, what makes me stand out as a person? And before I even came across this word, that's the feeling I would have every single time I crossed Shibuya Crossing. I remember I went on a date when he asked me what comes to mind every single time you're in Tokyo in Shibuya Crossing, and I'm like, with 1,000 people crossing all at the same time, I know that people there stand with their own problems and their own set of issues and are in love with one another just as much as I love myself and my friends. And it's such a humbling experience to just stand in the middle of Shibuya Crossing every single time. I think wherever you go, whether it be the busy Shinjuku station or the ever-filled Winno Park or the very famous Shibuya Crossing, Tokyo is always a reminder of you can feel so alone in a city full of millions of people. And one of the people I dated there said that he's been living there for like 2 years now. Most of the time, people in Tokyo feel lonely because there's this lack of sense of community. Whether you're fluent already in the language, whether you look East Asian or not, there will always be some sort of barrier if you're not fully Japanese. And I guess as a foreigner, I really felt that. I get along with Japanese people a lot. A lot of my good friends from college were exchange students from Japan, and I would meet up with them. There was always this wall between you and a local. They'll always perceive foreigners to have a different set of values from them, even if at the end of the day you are in the same religion, went to the same university, and so on and so forth. This preconceived notion of Western ideals so hard to overcome because of the media. Also, one of the things that propagates Nampa culture, which is old Japanese men picking up foreigners assuming that they would be down for a one-night stand. Even if you don't fit the beauty standards like me, you would experience this sometimes too, so which is quite surprising. But anyway, going back to the lack of community, a lot of foreigners who are living in Japan are trying to combat this loneliness that stems from a lack of shared experiences or shared interests, which is why I think towards the end of my stay there, I was able to download this thing called the Meetup app, where you can find very niche clubs to join. One of the clubs that I joined, Philosophy Club in Winno Park, which was great because meet foreigners who are living there or just visiting for a few months with their working visa. You can talk about things that you really love, which for me at that time was philosophy. And I think what's really cool about Tokyo is there are people from all over the world who come to that one city to experience Japan and what it's like to be in an international community. For sure, diversity is not an issue in a city like Tokyo. I think what the issue is to find people who are willing to spend time and connect with you. I think on Hello Talk, I was able to make a lot of good friends with locals and half Japanese, half foreigners. Like I said, there's always this wall and they kind of treat you differently. They'll never really tell you how they truly feel about you, and I think that's a very Japanese thing when I think they call it Tatemae, which is the atmosphere or the energy that you can't really say how you genuinely feel because of social reasons. One of my good friends, who's half Australian, half Japanese, but she was born and raised in Australia, so she has more of a very Western mindset. She explained how when she first moved to Japan, her sister was still in high school and she had this really good classmate that they would always hang out and get drinks with after class and long talks with one another, and counted her as her best friend. But one time she got extremely drunk, and this classmate who she thought was her best friend comes up and tells her, "Hey, I really hate you because I don't like your energy," and so on and so forth. Shocked. She was taken aback because for someone she thought was her best friend turned out to be someone who had so many grudges against her. And she told me that this kind of treatment is not isolated. It's not a single case. It happens more often than we think. And so I guess I'm making this video as like a warning to set expectations of how nowadays Japan is so highly romanticized for its anime culture, which is amazing. The amount of things that you can learn from Japanese kaizen and ikigai, and the way we approach the world, I think very stoic in a very minimalist sense, I think is great. But it's also very dehumanizing with the way that they approach relationships, and I think that's what makes Japan one of the most populous but also loneliest places on earth. And I think I felt that. At the end of the day, I would always love that country and that city that I think I would call my second home. Ever since I was 13, I've been spending Christmas and New Year there with my family. Of course, after graduating college, I had to go back and just experience if that was for me. It was a difficult place to live in. I think my closest friends at the end of the day were foreigners, and you'll find your sense of community through foreigners, but don't expect to get it from locals themselves. I think those are just my thoughts on what it is like living in Tokyo, but then of course I've never stayed there longer. I'm planning to come back soon, maybe to pursue the master's degree that I've postponed there. Right now, I think I'm happy with where I'm at, with the experience that I've had there. I think I was able to exhaust all of the great friendships that I've had, and thankfully long-term friends who are even coming to Manila to visit me from time to time. At the end of the day, don't get overly consumed by what you see on social media. Japan is a great place to vacation in, but to live in, I highly suggest you reconsider it. You're never gonna be fully accepted, and you have to embrace that thought before you step in, because if you don't, you'll be highly disappointed and you'll feel really lonely and see how hard it is to live there. So I guess that's all for today's video. Just a small little thought dump on Japan should be perceived more as.